This winter is going to be crazy compared to last year. If you didn't know, our weather pattern is changing. We are going from an El Nino winter to a La Nina winter, which means big changes are coming to the United States. The biggest controlling factor with any winter is going to be our Enzo weather pattern, which is either El Nino or La Nina. You see, last winter we had an El Nino weather pattern, which promoted much warmer and drier conditions across the northern tier of the United States, but on the flip side of things, we had a Pacific jet stream which amplified storms across the southern tier of the United States, anywhere from California all the way back over into Texas and as well as Florida, where above average rainfall and below average temperatures were observed. But this winter is going to be completely different because we are shifting from El Nino to La Nina, which might not sound like a big difference, but it changes the complexion of the winter weather for everybody in the United States. You see, the temperature trend across much of the northern tier of the United States will actually end up being below average for temperatures, leading to many more Arctic blasts and also the potential for very frigid weather, especially in January and February. On the other hand, much more moist weather is expected in the Pacific Northwest due to atmospheric rivers, or otherwise known as the Pineapple Express, that will lead to several inches of rainfall and the potential for flooding across the Pacific Northwest throughout the months of December, January, and even sometimes into February. As we go further to the south and east, drier and warmer than normal conditions are expected from California all the way through the southeast. However, that does not mean you will not see snow or rain, because during a La Nina weather pattern, we've actually seen snow as far south as even Texas, and in some cases Florida, even though it is a very big rarity. On the other hand, the Ohio Valley and the Northeast are completely different stories in a La Nina winter. Usually we are talking about above average precipitation and below average temperatures, which leads to more snowfall across these areas and a higher frequency of snowstorms. With all that said, La Nina is a huge reason why we think this winter will be vastly different from last winter, and has historically been a very accurate tool to be able to predict what our winters look like in the United States. With all things considered, December has already been a very interesting month when it comes to wintry weather, as we've dealt with a lot of Arctic blasts across areas like the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast, which this agrees with the Climate Prediction Center forecast for this month, indicating that we will be seeing below average temperatures in areas like the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. But on the other hand, we're going to be dealing with above average temperatures from the Great Plains back through the Rocky Mountains and up and down the west coast of the United States. And to add on to that accuracy, the precipitation forecast from the Climate Prediction Center has overall been fairly accurate for this month, indicating below average rainfall and snowfall across the southwest United States. But on the other hand, above average rainfall in areas like Texas and as well as Louisiana, and as well as back through the Great Lakes region, and as well as around Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, have all been very accurate so far, which indicates that we are probably looking at a pretty accurate forecast from the Climate Prediction Center for this winter. But with all that said, La Nina winters are never the same every single year. They are always vastly different when it comes to temperatures, total amounts of snowfall that have fallen, ice storm frequency, and as well as temperatures across the United States, which is why we resort to the Climate Prediction Center forecasts in terms of temperatures and as well as precipitation. Beginning with the temperature trends for the next 3 months from December until February, they are currently forecasting above average temperatures to be likely anywhere from the Four Corner states back into the southern plains and up and down the east coast of the United States. On the other hand, below average temperatures are in the forecast anywhere from the upper Midwest and the northern plains back into the Pacific Northwest. This is important because we are expecting a high frequency of Arctic blasts, especially in January and February across the northern plains, that will lead to very cold weather. And I do have bad news if you are a snow lover in the deep south, because in a typical La Nina weather pattern, we do deal with drier than normal conditions across the entire southern tier of the United States, which means areas from the Four Corner states back through Florida are expecting below average rain and snowfall. However, we have actually seen some pretty big snowstorms in La Nina winters. Most recently, we had a huge ice storm and freeze event that occurred in Texas back in February of 2022, which was indeed a moderate La Nina. This winter will not be much different. We are expecting a moderate La Nina. Now, that doesn't mean we are definitely going to see a big ice storm in Texas, but it does let you know that it is definitely a possibility, even if we are forecasting below average rain and snowfall. Now, in terms of the northern tier of the United States, back over in the Pacific Northwest, we are expecting several more atmospheric rivers both this month and as well as January, where we could see several inches of rainfall over the span of only 30 to 45 days. days. The Ohio Valley and as well as the Great Lakes region will continue to see big troughs off to the north and northeast, which means that we are going to see a ton of snowfall from lake effect snow events, and this will be especially common even into early January due to the temperatures in the Great Lakes being much warmer than they would usually be this time of the year. Now, with all of this taken into consideration, our forecast here at the Max Velocity channel for frequency of snowstorms is especially high in the Midwest and as well as the Northeast for this winter. And you'll see on this map here, the Midwest and the Northeast are in red shaded areas, which would indicate a high frequency of snowstorms during this winter, anywhere from this month all the way through the end of February, with areas like New England and as well as New York and Pennsylvania having the best chance of seeing significant snowstorms. Same thing goes for the Midwest, including western Michigan, back into Minnesota, Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and northeast Iowa. Now, on the other hand, we do have a bit more of a medium confidence that stretches from areas like Nova Scotia back into the northern and central plains, and also tailing the northern parts of the Ohio Valley. On the other hand, further down to the south, there is a low confidence that we could see maybe a snowstorm or two sneak in to areas as far south as Texas and maybe clipping the northern Dixie Alley. With a La Nina winter, though, they are a lot less frequent to happen that far down to the south. And another big concern with any winter storm is the potential for ice, or even in some cases an ice storm. So this map will give you an idea of where we expect the best chance for an ice storm to take place this winter, with the main areas being highlighted anywhere from Oklahoma back into the Midwest, which is almost always where we at least get one sort of ice storm during the month of either January or February. And then back over to the Northeast, this is an area that typically does see some form of ice when it comes to a freezing rain event, and that usually also happens in the month of January and February. There's one area in particular that I want you to check out very closely, and that's back over near North Carolina and Virginia. And for reference, cold air damming occurs when a cold air mass is trapped by topography, often on the east side of a mountain range. This actually happens upwards of 3 to 5 times a winter on the east coast of the United States, mostly just east of the Appalachian Mountains there in the North Carolina and Virginia range. With that said, we sometimes get some ice events out of this, so this will definitely be an area to keep a close eye on this winter. Now, we've talked a lot about the ice storm, winter storm, and temperature trends that we are expecting this winter, but another big trend that we have not talked about yet is the potential for severe weather in the United States. And I think this is going to be a big problem as we go into both January and February in the United States. You see, the temperature anomalies here as we go into January are expected to be above average for much of the southern tier of the United States, but they really get warm as we go into February, with the latest CFS model run showing well above average temperatures being a possibility in the month of February, especially across the southern plains and as well as the Dixie Alley. And the Dixie Alley is an area that definitely sees their fair share of severe weather events in the month of February. So hopefully this winter forecast helps prepare you for the winter ahead when it comes to the potential for big snowstorms, ice storms, and even severe weather. If you are new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. We do daily forecasts on this channel, breaking down big storms in depth for you, and whenever they are going to cause a problem to your area, we'll definitely keep you posted. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already.